Hi, friends. It's Ann Costa. Happy Advent, adventure in virtue. That's what we're heading towards this next 24 or 5 days of Advent together. I decided on this topic because it's something that I need. I need to grow in virtue, and I need to grow in holiness and happiness, because the two, it goes all hand in hand. And so it's one of my favorite topics, and it's something that we'll always need. We'll always need to grow just a little bit more in virtue. Jesus said, he gave us one way to follow him, and he said, "Learn of me, because I am meek and humble of heart." And virtues flow from his heart, so we need to study and practice virtue, and that's how we learn of him, just to receive the graces that we need to grow in virtue. And I've been studying this for a really long time because I need it so much, and I love to share about it. And St. Thomas Aquinas was one of he spoke a great deal about virtue. And this is what he said about virtue. He said that, and how it leads us to happiness. He said that happiness is discovered when engaging in activity which perfects our nature and leads to human flourishing. And I love that term, human flourishing. The Catholic world speaks of that, and they're not talking about human indulgence. They're talking about human aggrandizement, right? So we're not talking about making ourselves greater, but we are talking about making ourselves better and growing in a way that, so that we can be all that we're called to be, and that we can fulfill our purpose, and that we can do it in a way that reflects Jesus in the world. That is what's going to make us happiest. You know, as disciples of Christ, we are called to a disciplined life, and that's what virtue is. Virtue is like the habit. It's like a firm disposition to do the good, whatever that is. And many of the virtues help us to know what that good is. Like my favorite virtue of all, which is prudence, right? Prudence is always knowing and acting on the good. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. That's my favorite virtue. But let me say that also, when we talk about virtue, it says here, human virtues are firm attitudes and stable dispositions, habitual perfections of intellect and will that govern our actions, order our passions, and guide our conduct according to reason and faith. Faith and reason. Oh, those beautiful characteristics, you know, that we're even capable of all that is gift from God. And he gives us our reason, our intellect, our will, all freely, and faith, gifts. So they make possible ease, self-mastery, and joy in leading a morally good life. That's what's going to make us happy. It's not going to make us happy to do everything that we want to do when we want to do it. But it's forming the habit, and it's studying and practicing. You know, it was not a coincidence, I don't think, that the Lord wants to talk about an adventure in virtue this Advent, and then to see what the reading said today. In the first reading, it said, "Would that you might meet us," talking about the prophet Isaiah is talking about when God comes off the mountaintop, and that when he comes down and when he comes again, we're supposed to be ready and awake, right? It said, "Would that you might meet us doing right, that we were mindful of you in our ways." Oh, if we were just mindful of God in our ways, how much happier, how much peace would be, a certain peace within us that just couldn't be shaken. That's what cultivating our virtues and growing in virtue does for us. It helps us to really rightly order our hearts so that they're focused on that heart that's behind me. And in that focus and in that way of life, we can't be shaken. We can't be taken down. And and we learn beautiful ways of living that just help our soul be free, to be free this side of heaven. That sounds like a great pursuit to me. And I think of accompanying Mary and Joseph as they go to prepare a place for Jesus, just like we're going to prepare a place for Jesus in our hearts. Again, renew that place for him in the center of our hearts and in our lives. So we'll follow them and we'll walk with them in this next several weeks as we go on an adventure in virtue together. This time tomorrow, we'll talk about prudence. Now, my favorite one. So we'll see you then. God bless.